Hi everyone, welcome to another Game Jam time. I'm Paul Palmer. I'm the librarian at the Gloucester County Library. I'm the Teen Librarian there. Today I'd like to show you a bit of a different game engine. The previous ones we've been doing, they've been kind of getting more and more complex as we go along. So I'd like to go in the opposite direction for this one and make a very kind of simple game. If you've ever seen what's called a text adventure game, which used to be really popular in the late 70s and early 80s, but they're still around. The most popular one of the text adventures was named Zork. You might have heard of that one. But they had very simple, just to describe an area, like, oh, you're in a field or you're near an old abandoned house. What do you do? And you would type, like, go north or get lamp, stuff like that. And you would have, like, a story kind of play out that you were a part of, and that was the game. Nowadays they call them interactive fiction, but it's essentially the same thing. I think the difference is with interactive fiction, there's not necessarily, it might not be an adventure, where the old ones you definitely were like going through caves and fighting an orc or something like that. Nowadays they can be like much more just kind of any kind of fiction. You can have like a personal kind of story. You can still have adventures, but it might also be something that's, you know, a romance, or it could be a science fiction story. It could be a lot of different things. Okay, so this is a program called Twine. It's open source. It's free to use online. You can download a hard copy if you want, but the browser version works just fine. And you go to twinery.org to get there. I already have it up here. And there we go. And we're just going to go to use it online. I will mention, as soon as I start talking, cat always thinks I'm talking to her. If you go down here, there's a cookbook, there's a wiki, there's a Discord, there's a forum. There's a lot of information here on how to make your interactive stories. A lot of good things to check out. Highly recommend checking out the cookbook and the wiki, definitely. But for now, we're going to jump on in here. We're going to go to use it online. Now this page here will show where all of your stories are. I have 2 stories, both confusingly titled First Story, because I did an example one twice. But you can see this one has 3 circles, this one has a lot more, so you can get an idea of how many passages you've already made, how many story passages or branches you've done. So for now we're going to do, you can see over here there's make a new story, import, that's an important one if you want to import a saved story, and I'll show you a bit about that later. Well, let's go to start a new story, we'll call it example story. And you're given this grid here with 1 passage and nothing else here. So you can play it. It doesn't really do anything yet. You can edit it, that's what we'll do, or you can double click it here. You can see it says double click this passage to edit it. If you double click it, the passage is called Untitled Passage, and it says double click this passage to edit it. So what we're going to do is just put in something a little more descriptive here. Let's call this Strange Encounter in Space. And our first passage, let's get rid of that, and let's say
1 eternity later.
Alright, so as soon as the hatch of your ship, the Coriolis, opens, you see the creatures swarming around you. There are many of them, more than you can easily count, and they're all continuously in motion. So that's our opening passage here, kind of sets the stage for where we are and kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen next. So we hit enter, we went to a new line here, and what we're going to do is do 2 passages in double brackets. So we'll do double bracket like that and say, try talking to the creatures, and double brackets. Hit enter and do another double brackets, walk down the ramp of your spaceship. And you'll notice the double brackets there look like they highlighted in blue when I put the end brackets there. Now if we X out here, go back to the grid view, you'll notice the first entry now branches into 2 others. We have the Strange Encounters in Space, which we changed that to. It used to be called Untitled Passage. And now that branches to Try Talking to the Creatures, or Walk Down the Ramp of Your Ship. when you use the double brackets, you create a new entry, and it's named whatever you put in the double brackets. So you can put like go left, go right. You put those in the double brackets and you'll get these 2 new passages. So let's try out what we have so far. On the grid screen here, you can see we have a couple different options. If we go down to play, it'll play everything from the beginning. So it opens up this new screen. As soon as it hatches your ship, the Coriolis opens. You see the creatures swimming around you. There are many of them, more than you can easily count, and they're all continuously in motion. So you'll see we have 2 passages here that we can click on. You can just click try talking to the creatures. And it's just, we didn't actually put anything in the try talking to the creatures passage, so it just says double click this passage to edit it. And you'll also see there's a back button here. We can actually go back to the previous option we had. And then you can walk down the ramp of your spaceship. Once again, we didn't actually call it or write any more story in there, but those 2 options are there and they are clickable. Now let's exit out of this real quick. Go back to the example story. So let's say you wanted to make a passage that you didn't want to like essentially tell the person what the name of the passage was they were going to. Maybe they're going to do something and you don't want them to know what the results will be. So let's just put in, we'll open this up. Let's put a 3rd option in here. And we will say, open the cage door. Now we're going to put a vertical line, which on my keyboard, if you hold down Shift and the key that's above the Enter key, you'll get that vertical line there. So open the door, open the cage door, vertical line, devoured by lions, and double bracket. Now let's go back out here. Let's stretch that out a bit there. Okay. So you can see we have a new passage, devoured by lions. We don't want the person to know that if they click this option, they're going to be devoured by lions, obviously. But if you look at the passage, oh, let me hit play, not edit it. So you can see our 3rd option is open the cage door. The devoured by lions part doesn't show up. So if you wanted to do something, or name a passage something so you know what happens, but you don't want the player to know what happens, use that vertical line there. So I'm sure at this point, you know, we've only done a couple of things. I'm sure you can already see how you can make some pretty interesting interactive fiction already with just these basics. There's lots of other ways you can play with the engine. We can do things like, if you want to do more editing for your text, let's see, I think if you want to bold, I'm just going to go down to another line here. Do some space there. So bold is 2 asterisks, and you can see it already bolded the type as I did that. Italics is, I believe, 1 asterisk. There we go. And underlined, do a U and a caret, underlined, and U. I believe that'll underline it. Let me try that one out, because that one didn't do anything. Let's play again and see what happens. Okay, so it's underlined when you go into the final thing. So bold, italics, and underlined, just a couple of extra formats to kind of make your text look a little better if you need it. You can also do some images. If you want to paste an image in here to go along, maybe you have like a forest and you want to like have a picture of a creepy old forest to kind of set the mood. You can do that too. Let me get an image. I might cut here and come back after I got an image. Okay, so to do an image, you just use, if you're familiar at all with basic HTML, we're going to use HTML for the image link. So you do img space src equals, then in parentheses, the link to the image you want to display. Then the n caret there. Let's see if that worked. And there you go. Now you can put in an image. And also, if you want to do music to kind of have some background sound effects or something, you can do that as well. Now, I don't have any sounds prepared, but I'll at least put this in here. Audio src equals, and then in parentheses do the URL of, I guess it'll be like you'd have to have an MP3 file or something to link to, saved somewhere. But that would be how to do audio for one page. So I'm sure already you can see what kind of interesting interactive stories you can do with just these simple tools. Now you could have like a lot of branching paths leading to different ideas and different stories. But let me go back here because I have the same story we were just working on, but this one's a lot bigger. And you can see you can kind of move things around where you want. And the arrows will show you what goes where. And you can see that certain paths can kind of loop around, or it can get a little confusing. But once you get really big ones going, but you can even have like chapters, so like maybe all this happens in one chapter and then it all comes to an end and goes to another chapter over here, so then all the branching paths for that one go there. So you can essentially have different ways to get to the end of a chapter and then start another chapter and have a bunch of different ones there. But lastly, and most importantly, we want to show how to save your work. Because like I said, you can use the browser version, but it only saves your story to the cache of your browser. So if that gets erased or cleared, then you lose your story entirely. So you want to have a hard copy. So let's go down to this here. That little arrow should bring up a menu. And publish to file. If we click that, you can see it will download an HTML file of our story. Then we can put it on your hard drive, and you don't have to worry about losing it. And if you go back to the home screen here, you can see there's import from file. So if you did lose your story or whatever, and you have the HTML backup, or you're going to a different computer, you can go to import from file and point it to your HTML file, and you can bring it right up. So that way you'll always have a hard copy. And that way you can also publish the HTML file to like itch.io or any other place where you can upload an HTML file. And that's all. It runs in HTML, so any browser essentially can play these stories. So that is essentially Twine, the interactive fiction story engine. I hope you found it useful and that you are able to make some really cool stories with it so easily. It's really this great amalgamation of like, it's part game design and part creative writing, and kind of mashes them together in something really new and fun, and a new way to kind of like interact with someone's stories. So I mean, you can like I can just imagine like doing fan fiction this way. Like, would be really interesting to have like branching paths and stuff like that, or any kind of go online and look for a writing prompt, and see where these kind of ideas would take you with just a writing prompt. But just to get you like a little bit of a jump start on what you can do with the Twine engine, I'm going to put in links on the screen to two examples I really like. One is King of Bees in Fantasyland, which is a really wacky kind of story that I think it sells itself as like an interactive story that it sounds like it came from an NES game from the 80s, but with all the bad kind of grammar and translations, like very much the "are your base, are belong to us" kind of grammar. And it's really, it's a fun story. It's not very long, but it's very interesting. I'll put that on there. There's another one called The Often Ending Story, which is another comedy kind of Twine story as well. And that one's kind of fun to see the different routes you can take on there. I'll put links to both of those on the screen. And so that's pretty much Twine in a nutshell. If you're feeling stuck with how to use Twine, don't forget that back on twinery.org, there is links to the wiki and the cookbook, the Discord, the forum, all that stuff. You can get so much information out of there. There's a lot more you can do with it than what I showed you, but just these basics that I showed you here will get you like a really kind of interesting start on how to make your own story. So what kind of stories would you make with Twine? Don't forget to share with me what you make. You can send me a link at ppalmer@gcls.org. I'd love to see what you guys are making. And until next time, keep designing and keep gaming. I'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.